Hello and welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV that is doing the doggy paddle to stay afloat. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge Season 40 Battle of the Eras Episode 6. Now, this episode wasn't as chaotic or toxic as the previous episode, which I'm pretty thankful about. This episode was a little bit more straightforward, but how we're going to start this video off is how last episode left off, and that was Nehemiah winning against CT, Tina winning against Emily, sending two very strong competitors home, and coming back to the challenge house, we have 8 new targets. For Era 1, we have Rachel and Brad. For Era 2, we have Bananas and Laurel. For Era 3, we have Cory, and reluctantly, John A. And Era 4, we have Jenny and Josh. And speaking about Era 4, Jenny is not happy with her team. More specifically, she's not happy with Michelle. Why didn't Michelle step up? Jenny is now back on the chopping block. She is a target a second time, and she feels like she's going to be the scapegoat for her team. And the only person that she can really trust in the house is Johnny Bananas. Now, I find it quite rich that we get a confessional from Casey talking about the confessionals and conversation that Jenny has inside the house. Like, it's a bad thing that Jenny is talking about her guinea pigs, her diet, or her workouts. I just find it very ironic because for Casey's entire challenge career, the most I get from Casey's confessionals is what the rules are for the daily challenges and eliminations. At least in this little bit of time frame, I've gotten to know more about Jenny's personality and stuff outside of the game than Casey. We wake up the next day and we see Josh and Tori going over the numbers in their Vacation Alliance. Can we not make this a thing? Like, we don't need to check in on where the Vacation Alliance sits with each other and who their numbers are. I feel like we've got it at this point. But speaking of Era 3, we move over to a conversation that Cory is having with Nehemiah, and Cory is frustrated that John A. didn't volunteer herself. She was chosen anyways, and now he's pretty much tethered to her. If their team is having a problem with John A. and they want to send her in and kind of test her in the next elimination, guess who's going to follow her into the elimination arena? And that is going to be Cory. So he's a little frustrated and he's hoping that his team will give 110% in the next daily challenge because they need a win, or Cory feels like he could be thrown in. Speaking of winning the daily challenge, everybody dons their challenge gear, heads down to meet up with TJ in a field for this week's daily challenge called Cloud Catchers. In this daily challenge, every team will send 3 people out at a time to go retrieve these giant balloons. The players are going to have to run back, go through a ditch, and then have to climb through a spiky pergola, then attach a balloon to their station. Once they retrieve all their balloons, a riddle will be revealed. They have to solve the riddle to open up their chest, and their time will be stopped. Now, the whole point of this game is to keep all your balloons intact. You don't want your balloons to pop or they will not count. You want them to stay fully inflated. The team that can retrieve their balloons and have them intact on their station will win. I will say, putting the positives first, I like that they're trying to do something different that is not time-based, especially when you have a team at such a heavy deficit as Era 1, who has half their team. Not having time be the ultimate determination of who wins this daily challenge gave them an opportunity, a chance to possibly rival the other teams that have so many more players, and maybe they could have gotten this done. But alas, Era 1 still is doing terribly in these daily challenges. They're popping balloons left and right. Derek hurts his leg at one point jumping into the pit. He is writhing in pain, saying that he thinks he broke his leg, and he's hopping around on one leg the entire time. I commend Derek for his efforts, but after this daily challenge, there is no other word about his leg, so I have no idea what's going on with this. How bad his whales are in the beginning, I thought maybe he's going to get medically DQ'd. But we never hear anything about it for the rest of the episode. It's confusing to me. Speaking of teams in turmoil, we have Era 2, where people were wondering if Cara was going to throw this challenge because of Laurel. And even though they came back to the challenge house after the elimination, and Laurel's making slide passive-aggressive remarks to Cara, calling her a child with red hair, Cara says, "It's not in me or my character to throw competitions." Cara and Ryan maybe talked about possibly not doing this challenge and maybe sandbagging their own team, but they get the job done, and they do a really good job here. A team that we saw not do so hot last episode was Era 3, and they do not so bad, but also not so great. It doesn't seem like they're all on the same page. Era 4 continues to just do a bang-up job in these daily challenges. They're working like a well-oiled machine. They're communicating so well with each other. My one major critique about this daily challenge is it did not feel cohesive. I didn't understand it. You have to go run out, get in a ditch, then get out, collect balloons, go through one tiny pergola that has spikes on it, and then there's a treasure chest. I just didn't understand it. This just seemed so disjointed. This seemed like a budget challenge that was just like, we got balloons, we got a pergola. Can we make anything out of this? I wasn't a huge fan of this one, and I didn't like that the balloons just popped randomly. When it comes down to it, Era 3 was able to open up their chest first, then Era 2 was able to do it. Era 4 finished the competition third, and then Era 1 was way far behind. They had the least amount of balloons and they did it the slowest. But like I said in the beginning, this was not about time, it was mainly about balloons, and even though they solved the riddle third, Era 4 was able to finish in first because they had the most balloons, giving all the power to Jenny and Josh. Now, even though Jenny and Josh have all the power coming back to the challenge house, Josh wants to get Era 4 together with a team meeting and be like, this doesn't have to be just me and Jenny's decision. This is all of our decisions. And I think this is what really gets people like frustrated with Josh at a certain point, because I know I'd be frustrated with Josh in this moment because he's taking time to have this meeting, hear people out, and get like a consensus of what people want to do if they want to send in Laurel and Bananas or Cory and John A. And essentially the whole team is saying this is the perfect time to send in a 7-time champ in Johnny Bananas and a 2-time champ in Laurel. I think you should send them in. They go into the chamber, they hear everybody out, and then 15 minutes later, they rejoin the group and go, yeah, we heard what everybody said, but it's ultimately our decision, me and Jenny's, and guess what? We're gonna save Laurel and Bananas. I would be so annoyed. I'd be like, why do we even have that? Just don't even ask us our opinion in the first place if you're just gonna disregard it for whatever you're gonna do. Just leave us alone, you know? I just thought that was annoying. I would be so annoyed if I was on that team. Two other people who were very annoyed was Cory and John A., when Josh and Jenny told them that they're going in. Now everybody gets on their nice gear, head down to the bar. Laurel is like, I don't know what I did and what happened to not get me sent in and Johnny sent in. I mean, Johnny's a 7-time champ and I'm just coming off a win and I can't believe I'm not going into elimination. Guess what, Laurel? It's nothing you did and more so on Bananas. Bananas is carrying you at this moment with his connections with Josh and Jenny and the guilt trip that he was really putting heavy on Josh. Speaking of Johnny, nothing really happens in this bar scene except until everybody is getting on the bus to head back home when Johnny Bananas wants to have a quick conversation with Michelle, and he's like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I know we're friends inside and outside the game. I know you're getting really close with Devin. I hope everything is genuine between you two, but I'm just gonna say, look out because he might be using you for the game. I think Michelle was very taken aback by this, and as am I. You know, I thought Devin and Bananas were like two peas in a pod. They seemed really, really close with each other, especially on Ride or Dies. On this season, now Bananas is like kind of freaking out a little bit. Maybe a little paranoid, maybe wants to like start some drama in between the two. We did hear him in the beginning of the episode saying that he wants to split up some of the couples here. Michelle talks to Devin on the bus and back at the house, letting him know what Bananas said. And Devin is upset, you know? A little frustrated and anger. Now, they do sleep it off in separate beds, but the next morning, Devin tells Johnny Bananas he's on thin ice. How dare you go up to somebody that I truly care about and try to ruin things and my chances with somebody I truly care about, saying that I'm using her or possibly using her for game purposes? And Bananas tries to change up everything. He's like, no, I didn't say that. I was just saying, like, me and Michelle are friends and I don't want you, somebody who's possibly gonna want to send me home at some point, I don't want you causing a wedge in between me and Michelle's friendship. Olivia was like, I was there. That's not what you said. And even Michelle's listening in being like, I don't know about that. And to me, I think that this was just like a little too much on Johnny's side, because I understand couples in the game, they're gonna have each other's backs. You thought you had Michelle maybe a little bit closer than you did, but now Devin's there and you're kind of worried about some of the numbers playing out the way they did. You're connected to Laurel, and that's also being chaotic and maybe messing up your game a bit. But at the same time, I almost feel like this did exactly the opposite of what Johnny wanted. Johnny wanted to put a wedge between the two, but I think now, with how the conversation went with Devin, as well as the conversation in the gym happened between him and Michelle, I almost feel like that's causing a wedge between Bananas and Michelle, and maybe driving her to be closer with Devin, as well as Devin gonna get closer with Michelle. I understand what was happening, but I also am confused by it, and I think it just made things a lot messier for Bananas, maybe moving forward into the game. Now, speaking of people and their future in this game, the players all head down to meet up with TJ in the arena for this week's elimination between Era 1's Rachel and Brad versus Era 3's Cory and John A. in the elimination called To The Point. This episode should be sponsored by spikes and pointy objects, because you had the pergola with spikes in the daily challenge, and now you have walls of spikes in the elimination called To The Point, where players are going to have to grab balls and then throw them at their opponent's side where there's spikes, and they have to try to land the ball on the spikes. The person that can land the most balls on their opponent's spiked wall will win the elimination. I like this elimination. I think this is one of the better eliminations of the season outside of the night of eliminations for the Era Invitational. I thought it was straightforward. I liked that there was strategy involved. It was physical, but not too physical. I just thought it was a really good elimination. And it got really close for the men. It was Cory versus Brad. You had power over accuracy, while Cory was doing chest pass, where he was able to control the speed and the accuracy a bit more. He also played some defense. Jordan was giving out some pointers to throw the balls out of bounds to limit Brad in how many chances he could try to tie things up or even take the lead. It gets really close. It gets down to 4-3 in Cory's favor. Brad almost ties things up, but the ball is just going too hard, too quickly, and it just like kind of breaks on one of the points. And when it comes down to it, Cory wins this elimination. Brad is eliminated. Yet another Era 1 contestant eliminated. Now, the next round was the women, John A versus Rachel. This was Rachel's competition to lose because she was nearly perfect. I mean, she got 3 balls on 3 spikes almost instantly. You could tell like John A was nervous to be in the elimination going up against Rachel. She's doing her best. Then you have Rachel flailing in front of her, trying to stop her. Rachel is also scoring at an alarming rate to where it's now setting in that panic and paranoia a little bit higher. And then you have your own team and Jordan just like yelling at, it was a lot. And I just think it was just a little bit too much. She did start to score a bit of points, trying to mount a comeback, but at the end, Rachel was just able to score so many points and then hold on to that lead. So Era 1 didn't get absolutely decimated, losing 2 players. But in this episode, you have Brad and John A eliminated. And now Cory and Rachel have to pick new targets for the upcoming week. In Era 1, Tina has to be a target because it's only Rachel and Tina, and Rachel can't be the target for 2 weeks in a row. And then Darrell steps up and volunteers himself. For Era 2, you have Aviv being chosen as the target, and then Nehemiah is chosen for a second time. I mean, Rachel is good friends with Ryan and Derek and doesn't want to put them in any danger, so Nehemiah is chosen again, thanks in part because Bananas can't be chosen 2 weeks in a row. I'm sure Bananas would have been chosen if Rachel could have chosen him. Era 3, we have Real World Portland, Naya, and Jordan volunteering to be targets for their era. And then you have for Era 4, Kyland and Michelle volunteering themselves. I'm sure Era 4 winning 2 weeks in a row gave Michelle a bit of confidence to be like, yeah, I'll volunteer, I'll volunteer to go in. Like I said at the very beginning, this episode was very straightforward, not as chaotic, not as toxic as episode 5, which I kind of need a breather after what happened and all the stuff that was said on social media afterwards. It looks like from the previews that the next episode is going to be even crazier. So I'm kind of glad we got this episode to kind of catch our breaths. I'm a bit sad to see both Brad and John A to be eliminated, but I'm happy for Cory and Rachel to get their wins and feel a little bit more confident coming back into the game. So to me, it's a little bittersweet on how this elimination went, but I thought both John A and Brad gave a valiant effort, but it just wasn't their time. But speaking of time, it's time I turn it over to you. What'd you think about this episode? Let me know down in the comment section below. What'd you think about the daily challenge? Did you like this daily challenge? Did you like how it was set up, or did you feel like it was a little cluttered like I did? What'd you think about Josh and Jenny's decision? Do you think that it was smart for them to throw in Cory and Janae, or do you think they should have sent in Bananas and Laurel? Honestly, why not take a swing early on some of the heavy hitters in this season? Because you never know when's the next opportunity that you can do it. So I think that they could have played a smarter game and maybe thrown in Bananas and Laurel. I would have loved to have seen Rachel versus Laurel down in that elimination. I think it would have been very, very interesting. But alas, that opportunity slipped between our fingers like sand in between our fingers. Are you sad to see Brad and Janae be eliminated, or are you happy that they're eliminated? And what do you think about next week's targets? Let me know anything and everything down in the comment section below. I want to hear what you have to say. And now I want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really, really soon with more Challenge 40 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.